So I'm going to start with a story from an earlier time. You have to imagine like a Norman Rockwell painting kind of era. A young man, walks into a drugstore to use the payphone, and he dials a number and asks to speak to Dr. Bergson. Hello, Dr. Bergson, would you like to hire someone to cut the grass and run errands for you? Oh, you already have someone? Are you satisfied with him? You are? Okay, thank you, goodbye. As the boy's about to leave, the proprietor of the drugstore stopped him and said, hey, listen, if you're looking for a job, you can work for me. Oh, thank you, the boy replies, but I already have a job. And the proprietor is confused and says, but didn't I just hear you ask Dr. Bergson if he needed someone to work for him? Not exactly, answered the boy. You see, I'm the one who works for Dr. Bergson, and I was just checking up on myself. This is the time of year to check up on ourselves. On the high holy days, we engage in cheshbon hanefesh, which is literally a soul accounting, or taking stock of our souls. Who are we? In what ways did we live up to our values and ideals this year? How did we go astray? Who did we hurt? What do we regret? The ancient rabbis called Rosh Hashana Yom Hadin, the day of judgment. They imagined an all-knowing God who examined a person's every thought and deed in the previous year. Whether or not you believe this to be literally true, the message is that there is nothing to hide behind and no one else to blame. We stand on our personal merits alone. The 16th century Polish commentator, the Maharshal, rhetorically asked, surely God's capable of judging us all simultaneously, so why do we pass by one by one by one? And he answered, God separates us one by one so that we can see ourselves better. Of course, we have to turn inwards in order to see ourselves. While self-assessment can be difficult, there's a sweetness to Rosh Hashana as we celebrate a new year and rejoice in the creation of the world and the ability to recreate ourselves. There's a sense of hopefulness that with effort, we can change ourselves and our relationships for the better. This act is called teshuvah, traditionally translated as repentance, but I think a better translation is return. Return is an evocative term. Like, some understand teshuvah as a return to God or the godly path, or a return to spiritual alignment. Others understand teshuvah as returning our attention to relationships that have broken down. And still others see teshuvah as returning to a true sense of self, of who we really are when all the schmutz is brushed away. Teshuvah allows us to repair the parts of our life that have gone off the rails in some way. A midrash teaches that when the earth was created, it had no foundation. It was unsteady, unstable, and so God created teshuvah, the possibility of repentance, the possibility to grow and to change. And according to this teaching, teshuvah itself is the foundation of the world. We see chaos and lies and brutality all around us, and they are profoundly destabilizing. Teshuvah is a force that stabilizes society, that stabilizes our lives, that stabilizes the world itself. And when we do teshuvah, we rid ourselves of all of those little lies that we tell to other people and that we tell internally. Teshuvah is an opportunity to repair that which is broken. And our tradition tells us that this capacity for self-awareness and self-assessment and personal growth and repair and changing our ways, this is hardwired into us. This is foundational. What a cause for celebration. On the other hand, when we refuse to reflect on our thoughts and our actions, when we refuse to admit wrongdoing, the world itself goes off kilter. Throughout our high holiday liturgy, we repeat the phrase, Zocherenu l'chaim, remember us for life. Right? Remember us, remember us, remember us for life. Rabbi Arthur Green offers an alternative translation. He writes, Adonai is not one who remembers or forgets. We don't need to remind God that we want to stay alive for another year. Zochrenu, therefore, has to refer to our memory, not God's. Help us remember that we are alive, truly alive. Make us aware again and grateful for this first of your many gifts. The tradition seems to tell us, look, you are alive. It is a tremendous blessing. So how will you live your life fully? Because you can't be fully present in your life with all of this interpersonal nonsense and all the lies that you tell yourself and the facades that you insist are real. If you're lying to yourself and refusing to take responsibility for your actions and words, our tradition says that is no way to live. To live fully, we must live honestly and open-heartedly. Teshuvah then serves not just as a vehicle for change and growth, but also healing. A beautiful gift, an opportunity to regain spiritual alignment, an opportunity to heal our inner hurts and our external relationships, a way to live fully, something so powerful that the world depends on it. Sign us up, right? Well, I don't know. We're really reluctant to engage in true tshuva, right? Because it is difficult and it is painful. Teshuvah requires us to dismantle long-held beliefs and become vulnerable. It requires us to face the pain that was done to us and the pain that was done by us. It's challenging to look within. In fact, there's a story about this one. There were some jealous angels who were asked to hide the spark of the divine in the world. Aha, let's put it at the top of the mountain, offered one. Nah, said another. The human being is very ambitious. He'll find it up there. Well, then let's bury it beneath the deepest sea. Well, that won't work either, another angel chimed in. The human is very resourceful, and she'll even find it down there. And after a moment's thought, the wisest angel said, I know. Put it inside the human heart. They'll never look there. That hurts, right? It seems to be human nature to look for answers everywhere but internally. Looking inwards can bring up those painful memories. And as much as the ability to grow and change is part and parcel of the human experience, well, so is avoiding pain. We want to feel good, not guilty or ashamed of past behavior, and so it's very easy to avoid cheshbon nefesh, to avoid introspection. Also, distractions are everywhere, right, including in the phones in our pockets. So teshuvah is countercultural. Turning inwards is that first essential step in performing teshuvah. Rabbi Stephen Wise went to China in the 1930s, and at the time the main form of transportation was rickshaws, which were pulled by old, sick men with terrible coughs. And Rabbi Wise spent the first night of the trip absolutely haunted by the sound of those men and their coughs. And when he told his host about his feelings, the host said, after 2 weeks here, you won't even hear it. And after a month, you won't even remember that there was such a thing. And Rabbi Wise reported that, in fact, he did get used to it. After a month, not only did he not hear the cough, he barely remembered that it existed at all. There are many things that we think or that we regularly do, our habits that we've just gotten used to. And Judaism encourages us to live mindfully, to examine what we have grown callous to. We're not to harden our hearts. We're not to ignore suffering. We are not meant to continue on the wrong path. So how do we make it right? How do we get back on that right path? Well, Jewish tradition lays out 4 simple steps to doing tshuva. They are simple, but they are by no means easy. Number 1, recognize and discontinue your improper action. Recognize and stop. So there's a story about Alfred Nobel. You may have heard it before. He was the inventor of dynamite. And one day his older brother died. And the newspaper got the story wrong. They printed Alfred's obituary instead. So he opened up the paper. That morning he had the unusual experience of reading his obituary while he was still alive. And this is what it said. Dr. Alfred Nobel, who became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever, died yesterday. That's how it began. And Alfred set down the paper and said, that is not how I want to be remembered. And right then and there, he decided to throw his entire fortune into rewarding people for bettering the world and bringing it closer to peace. And that is how we got the Nobel Prize. Most of us don't get a wake-up call quite like Alfred Nobel. Most of us do not read our own obituary in the paper while we are still alive. So consider this moment right now your wake-up call, right? The shofar is meant to rouse us. And so in order to recognize that you're on the wrong path, you need to be clear about the right path is. Judaism instructs us to live holy lives, lives of justice, compassion, loving kindness, and honesty. So take a moment and ask yourself, does the way I spend my time and my money reflect those values? Justice, compassion, loving kindness, and honesty. What actions am I currently taking that are not aligned with my values? How have I hurt people in my life? Where are situations where I find myself repeating behaviors that are self-destructive or harmful to others? What do I feel guilty about? Whatever pops into your head, those are the areas in your life where you can start doing tshuva. Step number 2, verbally confess the action, thus giving it a concrete form in your own mind. Rabbi Alan Lew taught in his remarkable book, This Is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. Did you know that abracadabra is a Jewish word? The Aramaic words avra kadabra mean it came to pass as it was spoken, which is a popular Talmudic phrase that expressed the widely held belief that things do indeed come to pass because they are spoken. Speech has the power to cause the world itself to come into being. Judaism recognizes that our words have power. The Torah teaches that God spoke the world itself into existence, that whole let there be light, right? And there was light. And human beings created in God's image share this power. This is part of what we celebrate on Rosh Hashana as we commemorate the creation of the world itself. And so our next step in doing tshuva is to name what you have done. Name your action out loud. Or you can write it in a journal. You can say it to yourself. You can say it to a trusted friend. You can even wait 10 days until Yom Kippur, and we're going to sing out a lot of lists together. But you need to verbalize that you've done wrong behavior, because in this way you take true ownership for your actions. So that brings us to number 3, which is regret the action. You have to evaluate with honesty the negative impact that your behavior may have had on yourself or on others. And I'm not talking about self-flagellation, and this isn't like giving an enormous amount of power to your inner critic. This is just a true sense that you have gone astray and you regret it. Often when we know that we have messed up, we get real defensive. Well, it's not that bad. Oh, well, they did X, Y, and Z, so they deserve it. In fact, a great tool for personal growth is to question the places that you're defensive. Examine why you feel defensive, and that may lead to important insights that will help you change your patterns and behavior, because that is what tshuva is all about. People are really resistant to this because we are all good people, right? At our core, Judaism believes that our souls are pure, that we are good people, and we want to be good. But sometimes we have these internal conflicts. So ask yourself about whatever it is that you typically get defensive over. If it happened again, would I repeat this behavior? If you wouldn't repeat it, then you're demonstrating to yourself that you did indeed learn a lesson. That leaves you in a stronger position. If you've crossed a line you don't want to cross again. Sometimes we don't know that we'll regret things until we actually do cross the line. And so instead of beating yourself up, recognize that the gift of knowledge, right? The regret is a gift. The Ger Rebbe wrote, in order to accomplish tikkun, which is repair, the repair of both the universe itself and the human heart, this is the reason a person has come into the world. So to do this tikkun, one must find the sparks of the divine in one's faults as well as in one's virtues, because all of a person is needed to accomplish a great tikkun, a great fixing. So don't wallow in guilt. See guilt as a gift that just helps you get back on track. And that brings us to the final step of tshuva number 4. Don't do it again, or at least determine that you won't. It is really hard to break a habit. It requires tremendous inner work, as described above. We need to resolve inner conflicts and heal past hurts, and we need to take responsibility for what we have done and then prepare a better way to handle the very same situation. Rabbi Alan Lew wrote that Rambam, Maimonides, the great medieval philosopher and synthesizer of Jewish law, said that tshuva, this kind of moral and spiritual turning, is only complete when we find ourselves in exactly the same position that we were in when we went wrong, when that sense of estrangement and alienation began, and we choose to behave differently, to act in a way that is conducive to atonement and reconciliation. But then someone raised this objection. I love it. What happens if the circumstances in question never repeat themselves? What happens if the thing we did wrong never comes up again? How do we make complete teshuvah then? Don't worry, says the Rambam. They always do come up again. The unresolved elements of our lives, our unconscious patterns, our conflicts, and our problems that just seem to arise no matter where we go or with whom we find ourselves, they continue to pull us into the same moral and spiritual circumstances over and over again until we figure it out, until we figure out how to resolve them. And they continue to carry us into harm's way until we become aware and conscious of them and begin to change. And we all have recurring motifs in those dark, unresolved corners of our lives. In the domestic unhappiness we replicate from one marriage to another, in the problems that seem to follow us from one job to the next, in all the mistakes that turn out to be the same mistake, which we make over and over. It's the end of the quote. So don't worry that it won't happen again. You'll make it happen again until we get it right. So if necessary, right, once you've gone through these steps, change your environment, right, so that you can make better choices in the future. Enlist a trusted friend or a partner or a therapist who can help you avoid making those same mistakes over and over. Until we heal, those situations just keep popping up. Judaism teaches that those who have done teshuvah are at a higher spiritual level than one who has never made a mistake. We aren't expected to be perfect. Of course we make mistakes, and we are supposed to learn from those mistakes and grow from them. And doing tshuva doesn't have to be this enormous action or this huge dramatic change. Betsy Placken-Teutsch taught that tshuva, or turning, does not need to be dramatically large to be significant. A subtle shift now, even a fraction of a degree out of 360, can take a person on a vastly different path over the course of a life's trajectory. Maybe it feels like things have gotten so bad that they will never get back on track. Judaism teaches us that tshuva is always available. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught, if you believe you can ruin things, then believe you can fix them. Teshuvah is an act of hope, of healing, and of growth. It takes courage to admit that things have gone off the rails in some way. It takes courage to make adjustments in your life. A famous rabbi asked his disciples, what is the distance between east and west? And they kept coming up with answers, 1,000 miles, 1,500, 3,500 miles. And he said, no, the distance between east and west is simply turning yourself around. May you enter this season with inner strength, open to the possibilities of growth and connection, friendship and solidarity, change, and the beautiful life that you can fully inhabit. Shana Tova u'mitzoka, may it be a sweet and a happy and a healthy new year.